Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. I'm your host, Marguerite Crespillo, and I started this podcast simply dedicated to calling people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now, let's dive into the world of real estate. Hello, everybody. It is time for Real Estate Real World, where, we get to talk to all the cool people. And sometimes those people aren't even in real estate, but they're doing some pretty powerful stuff out in the world. And I love, love, love when I get connected to people who are doing big things and making changes and giving back in ways that I love to watch. This guy was actually introduced to me by my brother, Vince, and we did a podcast with Vince way back. We're long overdue for doing an updated one, so I'm going to remind him that we need to do that updated podcast. But let me read a little bit about this guy because he's doing some pretty cool stuff. So Jeff Richins is a transformational coach, speaker, and mentor dedicated to helping individuals break free from limiting patterns and create lasting change. His journey of transformation was shaped by profound challenges, including a difficult childhood, raised by a single mom, and doing lots of crazy stuff in his teenage years. We all know what that's about, right? Following his release from prison, Jeff committed fully to recovery, which I love, attending AA meetings a day and immersing himself in deep inner work. In 2022, Jeff founded Heroes Coaching and the Heroes Community Foundation, dedicated to supporting individuals on their journey to recovery and personal growth. As a dynamic speaker, Jeff shares his powerful story and insights on addiction recovery, self-trust, and personal empowerment. His work is dedicated to guiding others toward transformation, self-mastery, and the realization of their highest potential. So welcome, my friend Jeff. There we go. There you are. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me on here. I'm excited.
You bet. I'm thrilled to have you. So, my brother called me one day and he's like, I met this guy, Marguerite, and this guy is pretty awesome. And I definitely think you should have him on your podcast. I'm like, well, I don't just have anybody on the show. He goes, oh no, you got to have this one on your show. I said, all right, cool. So I would love to hear your story. I didn't really dig into it a whole lot in your bio because I really wanted to hear it more from you. So tell me a little bit about, how did you get here? Tell me about your childhood and what happened.
Well, just I'm 52 years old, and so I was born, in 1972. My mom was 6 when she had me. My little brother was 2 years behind me, and she was a single mom.
Wow.
Raised with, she was working 5 jobs to try to keep the bills paid, and doing what she has to do, and running with some bikers that were local here, and I picked up some scary little habits hanging out with them and watching my mom grow. So started out just kind of running the streets and not really paying attention to what I was doing, and lighting fires and fields, just being a boy, experimenting with things, and really not paying attention, actually.
So, I'm not a single mom. I mean, thankfully, but I was raised along with my brother by a single mom as well. And I have 5 boys and one bonus daughter and two bonus sons, and then 3 boys of our own. And I'm cracking up because boys are so different, right? Obviously, than girls.
Yeah.
They're so different than girls. And the crazy part is that boys are just wild, many of them, and they don't think about it. They don't think about things, right? And it's so
Right.
easy, especially when you don't have, good role models and positive influences around you. I know that I'm sure you've spent some time hearing my brother's story growing up and some of the crazy stuff they did. Maybe he didn't tell you, I don't know. But my brothers
Oh, yeah.
were just wild. And so, experimenting and learning, and I'm certainly was, no angel, but I won't ever tell my brother that, but but it's really interesting how easy it is for kids, especially at that age, without any role models around, to go down that path that can take you down a bad road, right? So it sounds like you ended up getting involved in drugs and alcohol and things like that, which is easy to do. I mean, now it feels like it's even more dangerous, you know?
Oh yeah, nowadays it's really spooky.
So boys are just
Okay.
crazy, the stuff that they do and the things that the paths that they take and the road that they go down. And it's easy to be influenced, especially when you don't have good role models around you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I really leaned into the older crowd when I was 13. I was hanging out with 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds. They used to have it's called State Street here. And yeah, I was like 14 or 15 years old. And we were cruising state and drinking beer and doing things that was crazy. And then that led me to, I have a son that was born in 1991 and he's 33 right now. And so had him, and I was hooked on cocaine and meth. And, yeah, I was like 18 years old, moved in her basement. And then just continued to, I really didn't know how to be a father. I figured, in those days, I just thought, well, if I had money and I could take him to Disneyland, I was a good dad. And
Right.
so I hustled and, worked at sort of a job and sold drugs and continued to provide as much money as I could to be a good dad, which was completely the opposite of what I know now, which today I'm a father of two. I have a 3-year-old and a 19-month-old. And the
Aw.
contrast is amazing. Like I'm 52 and I got this beautiful family and this restart, that, I feel like through my journey that I earned another opportunity. I met the right gal, which is, she's amazing, super young. She's 14 years younger than me. And, the plan wasn't to have kids, but it just turned into that, the trust and the safety grew with the relationship. But yeah, it just, the contrast of having, a son then and being wild and then continuing to, the sad part for me about that is, I felt like I didn't know anything different my whole entire life till I got sober. Like I felt like it was all I knew was how to hustle and how to, you know, just be a wannabe gangster, I would call it. I mean, I want to say a gangster, but it really was just a drug addict, somebody hooked
Yeah.
on drugs, somebody that was willing to do anything to get them. And so I turned that into a superpower. A guy that I knew that I was selling drugs to one day said, "Man, you could sell anything." And I kept hearing this when I went to prison. I kept hearing him say this, like, "You could sell anything. You could sell anything." So that led me into sales. And so when I got out, I kept hearing him say this, "You could sell anything." I thought, you know what? I bet you I can. So I started selling in 2008, started cold calling copier, fax, and printers. And no car. I was riding the tracks, doing 50 cold calls a day, walking through Salt Lake City. And it was something because, when you're on drugs your whole entire life, the fear and you just automatically, like your nervous system automatically picks for you. Like for me, I call it the comfortable hell. It's just, you just, it's like when you say you're not going to eat something that's, I'm going to quit eating that. And then next thing you know, you're eating it. You're like, why did I do that? Because that's what your body is programmed to do. You do it. It takes a lot of discipline and things to reprogram your nervous system and, get them choices back. But as I grew into a door knocker, I called myself a professional door knocker, doing 50 cold calls a day, in recession time. It was quite an experience. I'd walk in there and say, "I'm Jeff with Paramount Business Machines," and I'd completely forget what I was talking about. And the old me, yeah, I was like, "Oh," I looked at I'm like, "Do you mind if I read this off the card?" And the lady was like, "You're so, oh, you're so cute," and but so I'd read the thing off of it, and she's still a customer of mine, so she followed me. She's followed me for 15 years, from selling
Wow.
copier, fax, and printers to moving. I started selling safety products, and she just, from printers to safety products, she's still my customer today. Just building those relationships that I did. I mean, I built lots of relationships out there, telling my story. I've introduced myself as sober. So I've been sober over 6,000 days in a row, which is 17 years. And I bet you I've introduced myself as sober 9,000 times. I'd probably do it 5 times a day. That's how I met Vince. I was at the gym. He's like, "Hey, you're big." And I'm like, "Hell, thanks." And I'm Jeff. And, I just said, "Hey, I'm sober." And he's like, "Oh, me too." And here we go. Him and I are really connected. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I really took advantage of this new opportunity in my life as I kept going forward. I changed my identity, and by changing your identity, you have to agree with the new one, right? Who are you? And so that's kind of how we built this Heroes Coaching that I started, was my story through AA and how I stayed sober, connecting to myself and connecting to other people. And as we uncovered it, we just started it. Like, the reason why we started it is because everybody in AA wanted to sponsor. And when they'd say, "Who will sponsor somebody?" I'd be like, "Hey, I'll do it." And then they'd never show up. I'd be like, "Hey, call me, let's meet at Starbucks." And then they'd never come. I'm like, so I'm leaving my beautiful family to meet with people that aren't showing up. So I thought, well, I wonder if I start charging $100 a session, if they'll come. And so I called it skin in the game. And sure enough, just like hiring a personal trainer, they started showing up. I'm like, "Oh, this is great." Yeah. So they started coming. And so what I do is, buy them a big book with their money. And, it wasn't about making money. It was like my whole goal when I really started enjoying sobriety was to help one person. I'm like, if I can help one person, that's it. One kid, because I started talking at schools and trying to share my experience about addiction, because it's such an awful choice that we make. That was my plan. If I can help one person, and then it turned into, I've helped over 60 people that are doing really great right now through the program, and most of them I can say we did for free.
So let's circle back a little bit. So
Okay,
a couple
sorry.
things. No, you're doing great. So a couple of things. I want to go back to, when you made the decision to will be a better parent this time around. First of all, my favorite saying out there is, when you know better, you do better. Right.
Right.
And for many of us, how do we gain experience in life? We gain experience by screwing up.
Right. 100%.
Like that's how you learn what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
And so, a couple things too. So there's an 11-year age difference between my husband and I. I was 22 when I met him. He was 33. Mm-hmm. So younger wives, there's advantages to them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I tell my husband that now, because now I'm 61 and he's 72. I go, "You just married a younger wife, so you'd have someone around to take care of you."
Yes. Another genius. That's another genius in the. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Right. Smart.
Yeah.
However you think. So the interesting thing is though, I want to circle back to this, because I think this part of the story has impact in that. First of all, how did you end up in jail? And second part, how did you end up getting sober?
Okay. So, well, as you know, when you're on drugs, you do crazy things. You steal things, and you don't go to court, because why would I go to court? Because they keep me all the time. If I go to court, they're going to keep me. So you stop going to court, you get on probation. Yeah. So out here was just domestic, like bar fights and just dumb things that got me caught up. And then eventually I started running with, the deeper you get into drugs, the bigger you get. So I started selling drugs, and then you start hanging with more dangerous types. So I started running with some people that were, they were writing checks, and I was selling drugs. And I went to one of the places where they were held up in a hotel, and they had already been caught. And I was trying to get my money. And so I went into the hotel room And I thought, just felt awful. I'm like, this is one of my rules. Don't go into anybody's hotel. And here I am standing in this hotel with all this stolen stuff. I'm like, I'm getting out of here. I went to walk out the door, and the marshals were at the door right there. They were coming to clean the room. They've already been caught. And so here I am. So I got a conspiracy charge to being with them. They were already looking at me for, agreeing to sell meth on the phone, because somebody tried to set me up and saying, hey, can you get this? And so anyway, that led to so I went to federal prison for 21 months for that. And I've been to jail a bunch of times. And when I was in the federal prison, I was 35. And I want to say I had a spiritual awakening, and about 6 years before that, this is the craziest story for me, because about 6 years before that, like I said, when you're on drugs, you do things that you regret, and there's lots of amends to make. So I stole my mom's lawnmower, if you can believe this. And I opened up my own tweaker lawnmower business, right? So I broke into her garage and stole her lawnmower, and then I went and mowed lawns for drugs and sold it to them. And then I stole it back. So that led me to not talking with my mom for 3 years. 3 years. It just put me in this deep trench of shame and guilt. And, my mom, she was smart enough in my addiction to know she would never give me any money, ever. So I'd never, she wouldn't do it. She wouldn't give me anything. She's like, nope, I'm not doing it. When I'd go to jail, she'd show up at the jail and say, oh, I'd rather see you in here than dead. And so she'd visit me, and I'd promise her, like we all do, oh, I'm never going to do it again, and blah, blah, blah. And then I get out, and 5 minutes later, I'm doing exactly what my nervous system was trained to do, which was survive. That's the survival mode that I coach. And so I'd be back out there. But this time, when I'd never been to prison before, and I was in there, and I was speaking with a man in there, and we were kind of reading the Bible, and he read a proverb to me. It was about the truth will set you free. And I remember that, and I was sitting in there, and I was praying, and I couldn't figure out why in the hell, excuse my language, hope that doesn't offend anybody, why I could not live without it. I just, my whole life, if I had it in my pocket, I didn't have to do it. I could have it in my pocket for 5 days and not even be on it. But just knowing I had it I was safe.
Like a security blanket.
Yeah. And so I just was like, I just was so tired. I'm like 35. I'm in here, first before that, with the people I was running with, the feds told me that I was going to go to prison for 20 years. So when I heard that, I was like, well, I hope I get killed before that. I hope somebody, so I was in there turning the channel on the TV, telling people to be quiet, hoping somebody would throw me off the balcony, right? I'm like, I'm a pretty big guy, but I'm just praying that, like, if I got to do 20 years, I'd just rather be dead. Kill me, and then come down, when it came down to it, the whole thing came down to like 21 months. So when that happened, this is kind of a cool add-on. When that happened, of course, I didn't graduate high school. And when they gave me that 21 months, I came back. I was like, okay, now I'm going to start doing push-ups. And how do I get into school? So I went into the teacher and said, I would like to not get a GED. I want to do the work. And she said, look at over there on that. There was a table full of packets. I'll bet I did 1,500 packets of work. She says, you have to do every single one of those packets. I said, let's go. So I took 3 or 4 at a time, went back and did all the learned, had to ask a couple guys some questions in there, but I did all the work, got my diploma. Took me 8 months in there to get that diploma. And then they shipped me to the Fed. So I got a diploma before my son did, thank goodness. And yeah, it was kind of cool. And I felt really accomplished with that. And I thought, this is a great moment. And then when I got into the Feds got me, and I was in there talking with the man, and he read me that proverb. Sorry, I'm jumping all over, but
it's okay.
That truth will set you free. And I sat there, and I'm just in a cold sweat. And I'm like, whatever this is it's got to be. And it kept just ringing, my mom's lawnmower, the mower. So I got on the phone. I'm like, Mom, you better sit down. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, you know, the lawnmower, I stole it. And she started laughing and bawling and telling Robert's my stepdad, Robert, we got Jeff back. And right there, I felt this weight. And I mean, it was a spiritual, like, I just felt free. Like I just felt free. Like it was sense of like, that's everything that I've ever done, right? To my mom, to, you know, of course there was other things that I had to do when I did the work in AA and lots of amends and things, but that one really set me free. So when I got out, she helped me get a job selling copier, fax, and printers, where I was doing all those cold calls, and did that for about a year. And then I got swiped away for a safety company, seen me walking to his place about 3 miles in this heat, and said, I need a guy like you. And anyway, it just turned into this, and I'm still selling safety products for a huge company, one of the biggest in the United States here. I started a branch here, doing great, making good money, got a good career, and just built all these relationships selling. I mean, I can sell anything. What I'm trying to do
out there selling real estate is what you need to do.
Yeah. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to sell freedom to people.
Yeah.
I'm trying to sell choice. I'm trying to sell happiness and love and loving yourself and being confident and you know, the things that I never thought that I could be ever, because none of that was instilled in me in my life. I've always had the fear, you know, the anger. I've always had, you know, all the things that hold you back. I had them. That was my whole life, you know, from not having a father around and not knowing how to be a father. So, you know, disappointment and all that. So when I started getting sober, and it took me, I don't think I felt sober till I was like 6 years clean. 6 years.
Well, how did you, so here's my question for you, because I'm always curious about this, is that, because I have lots of friends and
Mhm.
family
Mhm.
who are in the program or have been or are in the
Sure.
program.
Yes.
And it seems with most of them, there is a moment or a day that they realize they've got to get help. They've got to go somewhere and make that decision. The moment that they walk into AA, because I know, and Vince has told his story, not here publicly on
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
podcast, but you know, of the times he tried to go before and
Mhm.
didn't last. You know,
Yes.
so I guess I'm really curious, because it's not anything I've experienced for myself, thankfully. But I do have a funny story that I'll reference and we'll move forward. So I've dealt with lots of alcoholics in my life and people
Mhm.
through the program, but I have never been to an AA or NA meeting. However, my husband is a stand-up comedian, and he had a comedy show at an AA meeting,
I love
right?
that.
So,
Yeah.
but they had the AA meeting first, and then they brought him up to do comedy. So I went in there. It's hilarious. So I go in, and I'm sitting, and I'm just sitting in the back of the room, right? Now,
Uh-huh.
again, I'm not an alcoholic. It's not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm not. It's not I mean, I have a sugar
Yeah.
addiction, maybe you could call it that,
Yeah.
but I don't have an
Amen.
issue with alcohol. So I'm sitting at the back of the room, and people are, you know, they're all being so nice and walking up to me, hey, you know, welcome. And like they think that I'm here for the AA meeting. And I keep saying, no, I'm good. I'm not an alcoholic, which they're all like, sure, you're not. Right?
Yeah. Denial.
All right. Well, you know, we'll help you. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting back there for like 30 minutes, but I'm listening to some of these stories and I'm like blown away. I'm like, you
Yeah.
know, wow.
Yeah.
And I was so interested and fascinated at the meeting. But like I said, people kept coming up to me and they're trying to like welcome me and, you know,
Yes. Welcome the
no, I'm
newcomer.
good.
Yes.
And then
I love
my husband, you know, gets up and does a comedy routine. But it was really interesting to go to this meeting and hear these stories, you know,
Yes.
and so I guess that really is circling back. That's my question. Is it what got you to walk through that door the very first time, and what got you to stay?
Yeah. So in the they call that the rock bottom. That's what they're saying. Oh, you have to hit a rock bottom, which for me, I would say you can hit a rock bottom, and now with all the modern approaches and all the the new things that are out there, for me, I don't say it's a rock bottom. I'd say you got to stop digging, right? And it took pain for me. It was pain, right? It was me. I was willing to do anything for the drugs, break your window, snatch your purse, whatever it took to get them. And so I put it in my head that I was willing to, in my heart, and I didn't know this, but my nervous system agreed. Like, it was tired. My nervous system, my body was so exhausted from years of lying and just not sleeping. And it was just, and then my uncle passed away, and I was in prison, and I didn't get to grieve that. And it was just, so when I freed myself with my mom telling her about the lawnmower, I made an agreement to be willing to do anything it took to stay sober, whatever it took. Walking, doing 50 cold calls a day, riding the tracks. I mean, literally 50 cold calls. So down one side of the street, down the other, up the. I mean, I was bringing back 50 cards a day, and my boss was like, "Man, nobody's ever done that. You are something else." Usually they do 2 calls, come back and sit around the office, and I'm like, well, I'm determined to learn how to sell. I want to learn how to sell anything. Like that guy said, he said, you can sell it. And I did, because I wanted more. I wanted to be better than I've ever been. And it worked. Like I didn't connect with anybody. I stayed away from them, and another thing I did was I reached out to a guy named Tom, and he was sober. Him and I did drugs together, and he quit everything. And he got sober about 5, he was probably 5 or 6 years. And he was just like, hey, come to the hall, come meet me at the hall, which was AA. And I went down there. And he's like, if you want to stay sober, you got to be here. So that's when I started doing 2 meetings a day. So I'd walk in there. And at first I was like, huh. I wasn't buying it, but I was in there like, arms crossed, and I still had that mentality of not trusting, and a guy came up to me, and I'd been probably, I don't know, maybe a year, and I hadn't done any work, and I was there 2 times, and he says, and still have this gangster mentality, and he's like, hey, I could put a smile on your face. And I was like, wait, what did you just say to me? It was a come on to me. It was weird. I thought he was coming on like, oh, I could put a smile on your face. And I was like, wait, what? And I started, the hairs on my neck started to raise up like, oh, now I knew this place was weird, right? And then he brought me this beautiful book, and he wrote his number in the back of it and said, you call me and I can help you smile. And I took that book home, and I've been going a year, and I've been cold calling, and I was sober, and it was what they call white knuckling it, right? I was hanging on for dear life, basically. I didn't really feel like that, but that's pretty much what I was doing the first year, right? Just staying sober, waiting for the miracle to happen, which I'm like, well, how's that going to work? And so eventually I called him that night. I'm like, okay, what's the deal with this smile? And I'll tell you what, I've been smiling ever since. I met him. I did the work. I did the step. I've done the steps 10 times. And like I said, 17 years of sobriety. I've earned every single day of it. I haven't had a drink, a pill, a puff, a cigarette. I won't do a surgery on my body because I'm afraid of, the narcotics they give you, the painkillers they want to do. My teeth, I want to get my teeth fixed. Anyway, I just don't put anything in my body because I know myself. I know if I have one drink, I'm doomed. I love AA, and I feel like the reason why I opened Heroes, I don't know if I'm jumping all over, you can just direct me, but it's a very surface solution. If you want to go to a meeting every day, see, I can't do that because I'm out here being successful. I'm out here building relationships with customers and clients, and I'm promoting Jeff Richins right now. I can't wake up. I don't get to wake up every day and say, oh, honey, you got to watch the kids. I need a meeting. I can't live that way. So learning about my nervous system, learning about, who I am, trusting myself, and making those commitments and living pretty much the gym life and doing things that's, the path I've carved. That's how we built Heroes. So I don't have
So
to do a meeting.
tell me a little bit about Heroes Coaching and about your community foundation.
Yeah. So Heroes Coaching is it was built with what used to be 2-on-1 coaching. It was me and my business partner, and we started out in 2022 just working out of the big book, basically. Getting people there who would pay, put skin in the game. We just talked and started doing some of the big book work. Basically it was like resentments and things like that, just to help these guys that were reaching out to basically build the community, to have, feel safe and regulate their nervous system with us. As we grew it together, he started taking nervous system classes and EMDR, getting certifications in EMDR.
Yep, I've done all that.
And yeah, it's a beautiful technique. And we just kind of collaborated. I was the bad cop. He's the good cop. I'm the truth hurts coach. Like, hey, you're a turkey. You're a piece of shit. And what do you expect your wife to do? Right. I mean, do you expect any different? And then we hit a dry spot because really, I mean, people, let's be honest, when you're fresh in addiction, there's no money. If you're a good drug addict, you've burned all your bridges. There's no hope. Nobody wants to help you. So that's where we started the nonprofit. So the nonprofit was and you can go on the nonprofit website and see we have a spot on there for scholarships. So what we did was we invested money that we didn't have, but we did it. And they go on there. Here's the catch. I put a scholarship on there. You had to print off the scholarship. You had to write it in by hand. And then you had to get an envelope and a stamp and mail it to me to qualify. I had over 300 people try to email it in. I said, no, the rule is a stamp and an envelope to qualify for the Heroes, for the scholarship. We helped 17 people out of 300 that actually would do the work. I mean,
follow the instructions.
That's how you filter out who really wants it, and we were. So I want to give you a number of 60% success. AA has a 6%. We had 60% success. So I've had guys in that are my first guy was at 3 years. So 3 years, the first guy we did, he's still sober. And then we have 18 months and 2 years. And we celebrate with tags that say 1 year or 2 year. I don't have mine on. I should. Dang it. But yeah, so we celebrate instead of the chip, we celebrate with the tag.
So your program, help me understand. So your program, Heroes Coaching, is a program designed to help people stay sober. It's kind of like a branch off of AA, so to speak, or a revised or updated current version of AA.
Yeah,
to help people.
Modern approach.
A modern approach to helping people stay clean and sober and living their best life.
Yeah.
And with that coaching program, the Heroes Coaching Program, which is a paid program that you can join, you also have the opportunity to have scholarships for those people who are not in a position to pay you or pay it forward in some aspect, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So taking scholarships. So we'll take any payment they can, of course, skin in the game. It is a one strike program. So if you drink or use or don't show up, you're fired.
Right.
It's simple as that. I mean, by the time you get to me, you should be, and I go over this whole thing. Like we're willing to donate time and give you an opportunity, but it's called the one strike program, exactly what it's called. So, how can you blame me? Right. I mean, it's like,
I don't blame you. I mean, I get it. You've lived it, that's where it's really important.
And I've had to fire a couple people, and they went out there and they're doing better on their own. I mean, they've stopped the heavy drugs. They're drinking a little bit, but basically what Heroes Coaching is today is transformational. Like it's I won't say that I can't take somebody with zero sobriety, because I would. But I'm looking for now for people that are in sobriety, like Vince, 2 years, doesn't really want to go to AA anymore. He's AA's. If you know your brother, he wants to
Yes.
surround himself with people that are growing, and
Right.
he's and this is nothing against AA, but they are people at AA, and I was one of them that we get complacent. And so what Heroes Transformational Coaching is, we're going to design your life. We're going to move you. I'm going to teach you about your nervous system and why you want to stay in survival mode. Because staying in survival mode, you can't grow. You won't grow. You'll do the bare necessities to make it. And so what I want to do is I want to help lift people. You don't have to even be. I have clients that aren't in recovery that I'm helping grow. First, their body. They come to the gym. I do personal training with them. We talk about their nervous system, about their choices, about where they're at, about cells, about, just building relationships. Learning how to communicate is a huge thing, right? That's
100%.
huge. Yeah, and then learning how to be a good listener, that's another thing, and you have to be able to do that within, in my opinion. If you can learn to love yourself and listen to yourself and keep your word to yourself, you can do anything. There's nothing
It's funny. It's funny because, when Facebook first came out back in, I don't know, 2008 or 9, it asked you to put a phrase on there. And mine is still the same to this day, which says, work on you and everything comes together. Right.
Yes.
And what I know is, I know for myself, because I spent a lot of time, money, energy, resources in therapy, self-help. I mean, I have every book you can possibly imagine about that.
Yeah.
Is the hardest work you'll ever do in your life is on yourself. But
Amen.
it is the most important work that you will do. And it will change your life all day long. And I think that that's, where most people struggle, because they don't want to face that. They don't want to deal with their demons. They don't want to look in the mirror and see. And when you learn to take 100% accountability for everything in your life and responsibility, you'll find a way to fix it.
Right.
But if you do not take accountability for something in your life and you want to blame it on somebody else, or say, oh, this happened because when I was 5, my mother told me this, or my dad, then you won't fix those things.
Right.
And that, to me, is been probably the most impactful thing that I've learned in my 61 years here on life, so is how important that is. And it sounds like you're doing some pretty amazing stuff all the way around. And how is your wife involved in any of this, or how is she helping? Like, what does she do?
She's my biggest fan. She's she takes care of her kids. She's a work from home mom. She's a social seller. So she works for a company called New Skin. So she's working from here.
So she probably knows a gal named Casey Jiha, who's one of my very, very, very good friends.
Yeah.
And sadly, her husband, who was one of my very good friends, passed away a couple of years ago. But Casey Jiha's like way up in New Skin. She's done some pretty amazing stuff with that company. She's traveled all over the world because of New Skin.
Yeah, we're going to Paris.
Well, I'm guessing that Casey might be there if it works in her schedule or not. But ask her if she knows Casey. She might be going by Casey Council, but Casey Council Jiha is her name, and she's an amazing human and one of my favorite people on the planet. So.
Yeah, that's been great for my wife. The community, the women, go women power. I want her to have everything that she needs. I've learned that. That's another thing that I've learned as a man, that like you said, all smart men have a powerful woman behind them. Yes. And that's
and vice versa.
Exactly right. But for me, in my life, I've never been who I am today. How's that? Like I've never really paid attention. It was all about me, no matter what. Even before I was pretty selfish and pretty, I guess 1975, where men, all that. But now I love who she is. who she's becoming. Her transformation's awesome.
Well, I'm going to send you a copy of my book. I'll get your address
Please.
when we wrap up today, called The 100 Things I Love About You.
Oh, I
And
love that.
it is
Awesome.
a book about my husband and myself. We've been together. It'll be 39 years. Wait, hold on. We got married in 91.
Wow.
And we were together 5 years before then. So it'll be 40 years next year. So 39 years we've been together.
Congratulations.
And I've told the story lots of times, so I'm not going to say it on air right now, but I'll send you a copy
Please.
of my book for you and your wife. And I feel like we could talk all day. Vince was right, but we only have a little bit of time. So I'm going to wrap up.
Okay. Thank you.
And I want to say a huge thank you for being on my show today. I'm really inspired by your story. And I feel like we're going to have to do a part 2 of this so we can dig into some more details.
Yes.
But thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you so much. And if I could just say one thing, if you're out there and if it's not Heroes Coaching, find somebody to walk with you, because if you have somebody to walk with you into your transformation through your fear, everybody has trauma. Don't let it stop you. Go through
100%.
it. Go, grow.
So important. So thank you. That's a great way to wrap up the show today. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Real Estate Real World, where we get to talk to all the cool people inside and outside of real estate and get to hear some inspiring stories of people that are making some big moves and making big changes, not only in their own lives, but in the lives of others. Be sure to share this episode with your friends and family and write us a great review if you have an opportunity. We're on all the social channels. So thank you again for joining us on Real Estate Real World. Go out there and shine bright. Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in the real estate industry and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes, and while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others to find our podcast for show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry. Also, hop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email to get early advance notice of upcoming podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and go out there and be a part of the elite masterclass and raising the bar on the real estate industry.